What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another episode of A Great Conversation here on Nerds and Suits. Today, my guest is John Schaech. You guys probably know John from his role as Jonah Hex on CW's Legends of Tomorrow. He's on a bunch of other cool shows. He was on Ray Donovan. He's very famous for his role as Jimmy in That Thing You Do. John and I have been friends for a few years, and I've wanted to bring him on here for quite some time to talk about stuff. This is a funny interview because, first of all, if you guys look at my face at the beginning of the interview, it's clear that it's the morning, and I hadn't really woken up yet. By the end of the interview, the swelling in one's face when they wake up, and in my face in particular, goes down. So my face looks skinnier by the end of the interview, just an hour, which is bizarre. But more interesting than that is the fact that John opens up about a lot of stuff in his life. He's incredibly candid. For anybody who has sexual abuse trigger warnings, which I know is kind of an intense thing to start this out with, be mindful of this. You know, John is very open. He's a sexual abuse survivor, and he talks very openly about his Me Too experience, which he's been very open in the news about, and he's just very cool about it here. He's very willing to be a champion for that, to stand for other survivors, and it's wonderful to hear him talk about it here. So the interesting thing about that is that we talk about his stuff, and it kind of spurs me to talk about some stuff in my own life that I usually hold a little closer to the vest. And so we kind of go into a conversation towards the end of the interview that I wasn't totally sure if I was going to leave in, and I end up leaving in, and I'm happy to do it. I try to be kind of an open book with you guys, and John's great. He's somebody who does a lot of work helping people out and kind of trying to be in the corner of people that want to make themselves better. So we really connected in this interview. It's really a lot of fun, and he tells a lot of great stories about all kinds of folks he's worked with, whether, you know, from Tom Hanks to Brad Pitt to Alyssa Milano. Like there's just a lot of cool stories in here. So stay tuned, enjoy the interview, guys, and a big time thank you to my Infinity patrons. We have Nicole Krafik, John Patterson, and of course Lucas Schaech. Big time thank you to the Infinity Nerds in the Nerd Network, certified with a tie straight. All right, guys, thanks a lot. We'll see you at the end of the interview. I don't even exist. I don't even exist from the waist down. You know what I mean? It's like
You don't have any
basketball shorts and UGG boots. Like that's all it is anymore. Yeah. So anyway, man. Well, that's cool. So you're out there. You know, you're raising the family. You're getting going with that. I recently did a rewatch of That Thing You Do. I recently watched it through, and I was tweeting about it, and I was getting a good kick out of it. It was really fun. I hadn't watched it since you and I kind of hung out, and you're great in that movie, man. You're really good in it. You're really moody. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, I love that movie. Such a well done, crafted film. It makes me miss movies when I see stuff like that, because that's a movie, you know.
Yeah, it's a great. Totally, I agree with you. It's like a great concept. It feels the way movies are supposed to feel, and I think that to me is like a lot of the way '90s movies felt to me. There's so many '90s movies I feel that way about. I think Hanks really, he got that. He just sort of knew what he wanted to do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Him working with the greats, he had his shot to direct something, and I'm sure he talked to all of them, Spielberg, Howard, and they probably gave him notes and a lot of the similar textures that they know.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because in the movie you're singing and whatnot. Do you play music? Is that something that you do, or it was all kind of set up for the movie?
It's all set up for the movie. It was all set up prior to me getting there. We did sit down and pick the song. That we didn't pick it; they picked it. But we all listened to the different. Like Adam Schlesinger, he sent in a tape with a bunch of other. There was like cassette tapes, and we'd play them, and we'd sit back and listen, and look over at Tom and Gary Getzman. Yeah. That was pretty good. But then when we played Adam Schlesinger's, man, it was just like, oh yeah, this is great. You make a movie about a song, that song better be good, real good.
It's a great song. That song. Yeah. I was doing a show on this channel for a little while, and I haven't done it for a minute, just life. But it's called "Song from the Scene," and basically, because I'm a musician, I don't know if you know this, but
yeah, I do know that.
Yeah, and so I was doing this thing where I would basically like talk about a great scene with a great song in a movie, and then I'd cover the song. And it's funny that I actually haven't done That Thing You Do yet. It almost feels like I should just do that tonight. I should just release it, because if you're gonna be on this channel, it's like it would be pretty fitting.
Exactly, you should do it completely. You should do that. Yeah, people love that. Great. It's a huge That Thing You Do audience, massive.
Yeah, and that song is amazing. It's so good. But so I actually so here on Nerds and Suits we have I have a Patreon, and I get to ask my patrons if they want to submit questions when I bring on guests. So I posted in the group, and a bunch of people had questions for you. They all wanted to ask you stuff, and so the first one is from Kelly W. Let me just make sure that I'm reciting the correct patron here because I don't want to give credit where credit's not due. But the question is Hanks as magical as everyone says he is? Sorry to lose you.
No, I'm thinking he's more magical than you think. He is.
He's more magical. He's the best.
He's real. He's a real human being who's got magical qualities because he sticks to who he is. He knows who he is. He'll be the first one to tell you, like, he's grateful that he knows.
And did you kind of know it when you first met him? Like you kind of picked it up right away. Like this guy's genuine.
Yeah. I was petrified of auditioning, but I had a skill set as an actor that once I knew what I was fighting for, I'd fight like nobody's business. And I had a really good take on this character. And I had the year before, I like wrote down in my journal, like, what did I want out of my career, my life? What was I doing? And I wrote down I wanted to work with Tom Hanks and Jessica Lange. I have it in my journal. And so when I got the appointment, I was like, okay, so this is working, like whatever that is, that it started to work. And so when I went in there, I was grounded. I was nervous, but I wanted to show him, like, man, I got this thing inside, like gift that I know I've been working on for so long. And what do you think? And he was just like, yeah, you're great. You're perfect for role. And he hired me.
That's so cool, man. That's interesting you said that. So you wrote down in your journal. Do you still have that journal?
I looked for it. I don't. I have like a billion journals, and I'm not. I write sideways on pages, so
okay.
It's like it's gibberish. It's like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like doctors write. I write like that. So
what, like here, and you're kind of writing like you're at an angle or kind of a thing, or
none of these journals are like that. Yeah.
Interesting. So, but it's legible for you. You can read it back. It's just
no, I can't. I had no idea. I can get this like
you can't read it.
I can't. It doesn't make sense. It's just gibberish. But yeah, like I was working off something. I was like, I read the book or started realizing like your thoughts. Like if you work towards something, you can actually achieve it. You have to get rid of all the obstacles in the way. And I was working towards that. And I was like, what do I want? Because it was a time in my life where I really needed things to happen the way it was because I had left my home. I had no family. I was doing this acting thing. And what did I want? Why did I want to do this? And then I wrote those two people I wanted to work with. Them.
Where'd you move from? Where are you from originally?
Baltimore, Maryland.
And so you came out to LA, and did you already have any acting experience, or you got to LA and that was where it all started?
I went to college, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is a smaller part of the University of Maryland. And I literally started reading those textbooks at college, and I was like, I can't read these things. They're thick with words, and I was like, this is not. How am I going to ever achieve success with anything that has this amount of words? It's like it doesn't work for me. And I took one acting class, and I was like, wow, this is cognitive. So I'm connecting with something, and I was really good at it. And just that little bit of, I've always wanted to perform, and I was really good at performance. I loved to dance, but there's where I came from. There wasn't like, this is how you do it. There was no manual on how to become successful in the arts. And so I took that one class, and I decided I had a better chance of becoming a movie star than graduating college. And I went to California. A lot to do with the way people started to look at me and think, like people would respond the way that I looked.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking like, wow, so if this is like a thing that I'm supposed to use, what a perfect acting is one of those things that it worked. And I went out there and found a great coach.
That's pretty funny. So I have a better chance of becoming a movie star than reading this book. That's policy, man.
And I had a roommate who was from Africa, right? And
Yeah.
I remember asking him, like, English wasn't his first language. I was like, can you, and I showed him the book, can you read this? And he's like, yeah, he read it. And he was like, and I'm like, man, I don't see it like that. And he was like, you just gotta try harder. If you can't do it, you just gotta keep working at it. That's what I did. And little did I know I'm dyslexic, so the words don't jump off the page for me. And he was, English wasn't his first language. He's trying to teach me like the way that he learned English. It was a beautiful moment.
Did you already
big basketball player from Africa.
And he's teaching you to read in your dorm room.
Teaching me English.
Did you know at the time, had you already been diagnosed with dyslexia?
No.
You were aware of it? No, you didn't know what was going on yet.
Yeah, I didn't know until I was like 45 or 46.
Oh, that's crazy. So because you had already gone through a huge chunk of your career. You had already gone through an enormous part of reading scripts and all of it before it actually was clear to you what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
There was some
true
benefits in being dyslexic with acting. And then there's, things that I couldn't achieve and I couldn't explain. I couldn't explain my behavior because of being dyslexic, the fear, the shame that I had. If I had known those things, I would have been different and, help other people, define what I was going through. Like with time, when I had time with the script, I was really good in an audition. Like with Tom, I was great in that audition. I talked to him recently about it, and he was just like, "Yeah, I had no idea." And I was like, "I had no idea either." He goes, "I said it's because I had time with it. That they don't give you much time now. That's why I was saying the 24-hour thing. Like, what this will take tomorrow? Like, how can you tell? It's like the actors now, they have to like pump things out. It's not the same.
Yeah.
For a dyslexic, it's really difficult. That's one reason I moved all the way here to Nashville, Tennessee, because I couldn't stand the shame that I was experiencing. And then I just, like Steve Zahn from That Thing You Do, literally said, Jonathan, get out of the city. It's going to be compressing you. And you just need to be creative and free, and things will come your way. So I took his advice. I
like Steve. I've never met him before, but he seems like a good dude. Makes me laugh. So
you know what? He has the greatest Instagram. So he started Instagram recently. Yeah. Watch his Instagrams. You will laugh your butt off. He's so funny, man. He's the funniest. When we made that movie, Steve Zahn and Tom Hanks gave me so much levity and light. I laughed the entire time, which I needed at that time in my life. I just laughed and laughed and laughed, and then I become this real serious asshole.
Yeah, you're super serious in that movie, man. You're like,
oh my God, I have to tell you though, it was very difficult. I mean, I got good at it, but Steve Zahn's funny. He's funny, and he would just do stuff just to make me laugh.
That's awesome. On the subject of dyslexia, actually, one of our questions here, it's from a Double Diamond patron here in the Nerd Network. So we straighten our tie. It's from Charlotte Gherkin, and she says, "Hi Ben, question for Jonathan. What about your experience with dyslexia caused you to pick up the torch and start working with Noticeability.org?"
Oh wow, yeah. So Noticeability, I'm on the board of Noticeability.org, which I don't know how this happened, man. But this is the way my life works. I was like, I have no idea why I can't do this same thing that I've been trying to do for such a long time. And it was causing me a lot of anxiety, and it was causing problems within myself. And I didn't want that to be there anymore, because I had a little boy and I had a wife that I wanted to keep around. And I looked up, an ACT teacher said, "You're dyslexic." And I was like, "What? Okay, what's that mean?" And so I Googled it, and I watched a TED Talk, and Dean Bragonier, he did this incredible TED Talk on dyslexia and the amount of shame that an individual feels when they're young and how they carry it through their life. And I was like, whoa. And then I started studying it, and then I called him because my wife knew his wife, and they live in Martha's Vineyard. It's just really, it becomes a very small world. And so I was like, he was like blown away that I could connect to him so easily. And and how that I hadn't been diagnosed for all those years, and how I got through and was successful as an actor. And we started working together, and he asked me to be part of the board. And I didn't realize, like, his program Notability is so far advanced for dyslexics. It basically tells a dyslexic that if you know your advantages, the skills that you have, the material reasoning, the interconnective reasoning skill sets, the narrative reasoning, like, storytelling, dynamic reasoning skill sets, you literally will achieve great things in your life, as opposed to beating yourself up because of the disability. It becomes a notice. It becomes an advantage that you just need to notice.
It's like owning. It's like sort of owning who you are and then using that for power, kind of a thing.
Yeah, because then you're not beating yourself up for the things that you can't do like everyone else.
That's interesting you say that, John. I responded to this when you were talking about writing in your journal about what you wanted. I've been thinking a lot about this stuff recently as I'm getting into my 30s now, and it actually reflects back to a conversation that I had with you the first time we met. You talked about kind of a moment in your 40s when you were like, you know what, I'm gonna get in shape. I'm gonna kind of just take control of this part of my life. And I remember it was pretty recent, I think, around the time that I met you. It was maybe a couple years earlier, and those moments, those transitional moments where you decide to just like own something, this is what I want, so I'm going to get it. I can start to feel one happening in my own life now. I haven't quite got my hands around it yet, but I can kind of feel the next thing coming. Have you had more than one of those in your life, or is the one I'm talking about the most significant? That one where you got in great shape and all that stuff?
I think that was one of the first times. Well, moving to California, that was the first big one. Like, I had a calling, something that was talking to me and I listened to. And then I don't know something sparked that. I mean, my age sparked it. Having a child.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's the inner journey made me look back and say, what drove you to do these things? And I remember, like, I was little. I was a little guy, right? Like, I got cut from every team I loved. And I just was like, I'm never I couldn't read. I was the littlest kid in my class. I was like, what am I going to do? So I lifted weights. And because I lifted weights, I got stronger and I could play athlete. I got good at sports. I was always good, but I was just too little. But then I trained. And so when I first met you, I was training because I realized, like, I needed to get that extra edge in me that I had before, and I couldn't quite figure it out. So as I was journaling in and trying to figure out what were the things that were keeping me from what I really wanted, what was the things that are going to help me get those things? And what I saw was, like, my physical body, not only the way that it looks and the way that people perceive and look at me, but like this inner quality in me that was kind of lost at that time. And what training, discipline, and sacrifice, Joseph Campbell says, sacrifice the bliss, are the things that always had brought me successes. So there's been numerous times in my life when I went down a real hard journey of sacrifice to attain my bliss. And get clear.
What is your bliss? What is your bliss now?
Well, right now it's having an incredible family life. It's truly phenomenal. And now I have to try to figure out how to get back in my industry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you got the thing that it's all supposed to be about, right? Because we work so hard in our careers because I guess whatever it is, I don't know what it was for you, but so much of it for me, it's like I want to achieve more. I want to achieve more. I want to get more recognized, whatever. But then who are you going to share it with? What's the point? Where are you really going with it? I can feel it happening to myself. I don't know what's next, but I can definitely feel it happening. I don't really know what the point is. I could be infinitely more successful, but I still don't really know when it ends. Do you know?
I was in Ellen DeGeneres' life for a very short period of time. No, actually, it wasn't that short of a period of time. It was a pretty long time. But I witnessed her not be able to be herself. Right now, society was dictating who she could be. And when she finally made the decision that she wasn't going to allow anyone else to define who she was, she came out, she shared to the world that she was gay, and she didn't, she put everything on the line, is when she finally took ownership of her story, and she became, everything and beyond. She was given rewards she could never conceive of. Like, no one could ever think that you could become that successful or famous or rich or what other words were. She just got to be who she was. And I think that's what you're looking to do. You need to be more of who you are. And the only way you'll ever be able to do that is to find the courage within you. And you hear your calling. When you hear your calling, you go to it. Joseph Campbell talked about going inside the place we're most scared of, the cave that we're afraid to. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like the cave that we're afraid to go into, the thing that we've always been thinking no one ever could handle. That's where you need to go. Always, as an artist, in anything, whether you're an artist or a businessman or whatever, you have to go to that place and really deal with that, because that's going to keep you back from your greatest self.
Joseph Campbell, what book is this that you're talking about?
The Power of Myth.
Okay.
You don't know The Power of Myth. You have to know The Power of Myth. Okay, so Joseph Campbell basically is Star Wars.
Yeah, so I know I've heard Power of Myth referenced by Lucas, but I never read it.
The Power of Myth. It's mythology. It's all about the power of myth, mythology, heroes, becoming your own hero in your own story. Yeah.
It's kind of badass, actually. I always think about it as the thing that George Lucas references, and then he gets kind of made fun of for referencing it, but I've never actually looked into reading it. So you've read it. So you've read it more than once?
Well, I've read it pretty much daily.
Really? It's a huge part of your life.
Major. I've lived it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool, man. Maybe I'll go. Maybe that's something I gotta go do. I gotta order an air conditioner unit because I'm dying, and maybe The Power of Myth also.
God.
You
gotta have air conditioning. God, Lord, it's so hot.
I live in Santa Monica. I'm just an up and coming host over here, and I chose to get the bigger place without the AC. So
Santa Monica, thank God you're there right now. You can walk around.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, dude, it's rough out here. It's rough. What's the weather like where you're at in Nashville?
Well, it's ridiculously hot and sticky, and I work outside a lot, and I go through 4 t-shirts a day.
Wow.
Like, I don't want to walk. I don't want to like do all my yard work with all my neighbors, like this buff actor guy like doing his lawn. So I put shirts on and
sweat through them. Yeah. Do you have like a home gym setup that you were able to build, or have you not been able to work out?
Oh, man, I had the world's smaller than we all think, by the way, because I literally was training in a spin studio in California. It was called the Sweat Shop, and my instructor is now a Peloton instructor. So my wife gets the Peloton bike, and I get like, well, I can't go to a gym because of COVID, and I get on the Peloton bike, and my instructor is there. I was like, wow. All right, I'm supposed to be there on this bike. So I've been training on a Peloton bike.
So Peloton's it's like a home bike? What is a Peloton? What is it?
Peloton has classes. So they different kind of classes on the spin bike. It's all spinning. I've been spinning since Bob Harper at Crunch Gym. Oh my God, 93.
Wow. So that's cardio, but so you got to be doing weights too, though, right?
Yeah, I started going back to the gym when everything kind of cleared up a lot. I go to Gold's Gym out here.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, we're still totally shut down. I'm doing these home workouts. My brother and sister and I were all in different states. We're on a text thread trying to keep each other motivated.
That's great, man. That's a great way to connect to your family.
It's been cool. Yeah, I started this thing kind of recently, actually, that it came out of, and it was this idea. The whole idea of creating a habit or breaking a habit with 30 days. It takes 30 days to form a habit. So the whole idea was that what if for a year of your life, every single Monday, you implemented a new 30-day habit. So at the end of the first 30, you start basically you're doing 4 at once. The whole year you'd be doing 4 at once, and it could be tiny things, right? Make your bed, maybe clean something you own. Whatever it could be more complicated, but probably they have to be kind of small. Otherwise you'll fall off. So I started doing it, and it was pretty cool. One of them was home workouts with my brother and sister. So we started doing that. And then I opened it up to the audience of this channel, so the patrons here, and I was like, if you send me what your goals are, I'll check on you guys once a week, and then I'll shout you out on the live streams every week. I'll let you, congratulate you for sticking with your goals. And it's been a really cool thing. There's about 25 patrons who are all doing it together. It's this whole thing, but it's been very interesting because I haven't been totally great about it. I've been good about it, but I've definitely fallen off on some of the goals. And so accepting that is, that's a whole different thing. Like kind of accepting your own failure and realizing that it doesn't end there. You have to just keep pushing through to the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's been interesting, but that's where the working out came from. So it's been helpful because
it'll help you. Any discipline will help you get through times like this, man.
Yeah.
So
are you watching movies? Are you watching TV? What are you doing for entertainment?
Well, I watched Hightown, which I thought was exceptional.
Hightown.
You didn't see Hightown?
No.
Riley Vogel was on it. She's a friend of mine, and just thought it was great. It really deals with addiction. Deals with addiction.
I think I've heard of this show.
Opioid epidemic in America. So I thought that was great. And then I loved. Hold on. Bad Boys. Boys. Is it called
The Boys?
The Boys.
Yeah, the show.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It's based on a comic book from a writer I'm a big fan of, Garth Ennis, the guy that did Preacher.
I love him. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Sandman.
Yeah, that's cool.
Does he do Sandman?
That's Neil Gaiman. Close. They're like same press that they both had Vertigo comic books.
The Preacher? Does he do the Preacher?
Preacher. Yeah. Garth Ennis, the Preacher. I actually once got to meet him once at the premiere for the show, and I remember talking to him and Steve Dillon, the guy that drew Preacher, and I ended up getting a drink with him at the party, which was pretty cool. And I talked to Garth for like an hour because I'm a huge comic book fan, and that was like a dream of mine. Like I have a signed Preacher comic over here on the shelf behind me that at the end of it, he was like, "Sure, man, yeah, good luck with everything you're doing." I was like, "That's a dream. It was a little kid dream of mine. It was pretty cool."
Preacher. It's just I can't believe they made that. I think I told you this, but I was down at the Golden Apple. I used to live right by the Golden Apple one moment.
Yeah.
And I used to go down there and grab all the comic books, just start dreaming about becoming one of them in the movies,
Yeah.
And that was the Preacher was the one. I really wanted that one. I thought I'd be perfect for it.
You would have crushed as Jesse. You would have been fantastic
as Jesse.
Great. Man.
My younger years, man, I would have killed it.
Yeah.
With the Doom generation, and oh boy, yeah. But they weren't making those kind of movies, They just
for sure
series or whatever.
Yeah, things got different for sure. So speaking of that, actually, our next one here is from Will McLean. Will McLean, who's a platinum patron here in the Nerd Network. He asks, "Are there any big differences working as an actor on a movie versus a TV show?"
There's you just kind of approach it the same way. But the storytelling principles behind the evolution of a character is different. So your character has to go through something in a film, as opposed to in a series, you have to maintain those qualities and keep presenting them because the audience needs to follow along with what that character does. Like if you're on Friends, the TV series Friends, you knew what those characters were going to do before they even did them. So that's the big difference, I think, from an actor's standpoint. You really need to maintain that character and not evolve him, not finish his arc.
Do you prefer one or the other?
Oh, I love movies. I love making movies. I can't wait till either I write down what TV series I want to be on, or someone writes it down for me. So I'm not sure yet how that's going to go. But I'd love to be on the series because I think I connect really well and reflect really well social issues. So I'm really good at that, just as an artist.
Yeah. You're you were recently in a film, a Netflix film, right? It's called the Night Clerk. Is that the name of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Night Clerk. It's with Ty Sheridan, Anna De Armas. My scenes are with Anna, Helen Hunt, John Leguizamo. It's a great cast. Michael Christopher is the writer, director.
Incredible cast, man. Yeah, really, really good. So you got to do scenes with Anna. So she's like a darling of the world and everybody loves her. How's she in person? Sweetheart?
It's complete sweetheart. Genuinely, talented. and good, okay with it. Like she was
Yeah.
okay with it. She reminded me of Gwyneth Paltrow. She reminded me of like when Gwyneth was, I was working with Gwyneth. Brad Pitt was dating her at the time, so Brad was always around, and he was in the back house. Like I go talk to him because we had the same acting teacher, and I talked to him, and then Gwyneth just had this like this knowledge that she was going to be a star, like a star. And Anna's like, she knows she's going to be a star. I mean, they were very similar times in their lives. And I was like, wow, this girl's going to be a monster, like a big movie star, if that's still a thing. And and I'm right, man. She just rocketed to the top.
So when did you guys film that movie?
Maybe 2 years. It's so hard because COVID like cut off a whole year. So maybe 3 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. So she was just starting to break through. Like that's like before Blade Runner, probably. That's like that was like the big thing. I feel like that put her on the map.
Hold on. I think it was right after Blade Runner. It was after Blade Runner.
Okay, yeah. She's doing big things. I'm a fan. I'm excited. She's gonna be in the next James Bond, which is pretty cool. If that movie ever.
Monroe.
Oh, she's playing Marilyn Monroe.
Really? In a film called Blondie.
Crazy. Is that's announced, right? People know about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think.
Cool.
I got to read with the casting directors. So, Megan Fox came in, and man, she was extraordinary. I mean,
Megan Fox was.
She did a Marilyn Monroe that I was crying my eyes out from watching her perform. She was incredible.
Huh. Wild. Yeah, she's. I mean, I feel like Megan Fox got a little bit of a raw deal as an actress early on because she was such a sex symbol in those Transformers movies. I feel like that's what everybody focused on. And then I feel like now people are reticent to take her more seriously as an actress. But she started so young. I feel like she's like in her early 30s or something. Right? Yeah. I feel like Megan Fox has a whole entire second life of her career that could happen. And people would be like, wow, where was this in Transformers, kind of a thing? You know what I mean? Well, that's awesome, man. That sounds like a really, really fun one to have worked on. I know you've got another film also that I think has not been released yet. You did with RJ Mitty, right?
It's called Triumph.
Yeah.
I think they might change the title. I'm not sure. But it's about a boy who has MS, wants to wrestle. And I'm his dad. And so I encourage him. And then I'm like, no, you don't want to wrestle. You can't do it. And he proves me wrong. It's a true story written by a young man who has MS who wanted to wrestle. And, he wrote a beautiful screenplay. And it's with Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
RJ Mitty.
Yeah. So this is all stuff you were working on in the pre-COVID days. And now we just, so now with creative just sort of being on hold, because I'm in the same boat, like all these projects and things I wanted to work on, everything feels like it's on hold. I'm, hoping to kind of stay involved in things I was involved in before. So what do you do creatively right now? What are you doing to get out that creative energy?
Well, I'm a writer, so I write, but man, it's like I'm literally going to build my son a wiffle ball court in the backyard with a tractor and a bunch of asphalt. Hopefully Steve Zahn will come down and help me. He's got a tractor. We can get it done faster.
You're going to build a whole court? You're going to lay asphalt with a tractor, the whole thing?
Well, no. So there was a tennis court in the back, which was overgrown with trees. It was probably 200 trees. It was like a forest. It was foxes living in there. So I cut all the trees down. It took me almost a year.
Wow.
Now the old asphalt had trees everywhere, through the cracks. And now I'm clearing half of the court out. I left half the fencing up. And so it's going to be like the backstop, and then make a little field for him.
That's wild. Cutting down trees? You're a Renaissance man. How the hell would you get like a giant saw? How do you?
I've gone through 3 chainsaws, and then something called a sawzall. You ever had a sawzall?
No, I don't know what the hell that is.
Monster thing is like having a machine gun. Like I walk in the house, I'm like,
Wow.
I just, yeah, all the roots. I mean, I wish I could show you. It's unbelievable. I cut trees down, cut the trunks out, and my father-in-law's lent me his tractor, which has been magnificent and helpful.
I've never ridden. What do you call it? Ridden or driven a tractor? I'm not sure which it is. Driven? I guess you drive a tractor.
I guess you could ride a tractor. Feels like you're on a horse.
Yeah. Crazy, man. I don't know. That seems like the least. That's like the least LA thing I can think of is riding a tractor. You know?
Yeah, I feel like I'm making a movie because it's so out of the normal. Yeah, the chainsaws. You know, that's courage, bravery, grabbing a chainsaw. Like, okay, I'm gonna chop down this tree.
Wild, man. That's crazy stuff. So I'm gonna ask another question here from a patron. We got a few more. They were wondering. So Megs, Dr. Megs, who's a Diamond patron here in the Nerd Network, she asks, is there a movie or TV set that you've been on that you would like to live in?
I think you do.
Just because the time period, just fun, the whole thing.
It was the age of it. It was before America ended its innocence. It was a great time period. I have a documentary that hopefully will make into a movie with Mark Wahlberg right now about that time period, 1963, 1964. Great time in American history. The Innocents.
That's a good answer. Awesome. Next up, we got Claire Sexton, who asks here, what sculpture was Graydon making in Poison Ivy 2? I don't know what that is, but
Graydon.
Graydon.
Yeah, I can't remember what he was making. Sure, it was something sexy. I learned how to weld.
For that movie?
Interesting, but I literally have those boots. Those are the boots that I wear on my tractor.
The boots from Poison Ivy 2?
In 1993.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? No. Big motor.
Do you hold on? Do you hold on to a lot of mementos from the movies you've been in?
Well, in the beginning, all the wardrobe would just go right to me. But then when they could start to market it, they started keeping it. And then when you get to the bigger projects like That Thing You Do, you're costumed and you're not going to take home your red suits. But the independent features. Yeah, I got a pair of cowboy boots from Blue Ridge, which you have to watch Blue Ridge. It's out now. It's great.
Yeah, right. Wait, like a cop in that one?
I play a town sheriff. He used to be military special ops, and from his time away from home, he lost his family. He lost his wife, and he goes to the town that they live in. And he becomes the sheriff, so he can try to win her back.
Nice.
Yeah, little romantic lead for Schaech. First time in a long time.
Romantic lead, man. That's sweet. I love that.
Yeah, like I play a lot of really bad people.
What is that about? You're like the nicest dude I've ever met in my life, and I feel like you get cast as these brooding assholes all the time. What's that?
It's acting.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do with the way I look.
Yeah.
People judge you for the way your skin color, the way that you look. You gotta, and so I can harness those darker elements of myself very well. Yeah.
You have a favorite bad guy you've played?
Jonah Hex is my favorite, and I don't think he's a bad guy at all, but he's definitely not a good guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of crossed the line between the two worlds.
Yeah.
Like the guy in Night Clerk, boy, he's a horrible human being. The men who decide that you have to make all my bad guys right, and they're just, they're good. They think that they're in the right in what they do, and what he was so horrible that I found it in the moments, and afterwards I watched and I was just like, they cut a couple things out, so the story arc isn't really there for me, and I totally understand it because you don't want to give this guy a heart whatsoever because his actions are just horrible. It's like trying to do Jeffrey Dahmer, like give him a backstory so that you love him.
So your dude's he's just the scum of the earth in this movie.
Yeah, he's a bad dude. He makes a mistake, and I understand. That's how I gave it justice, is that we all do things wrong in our lives, and some
Yeah.
of them go, get punished for it, and in time, eventually, it will come back to haunt you. But he continues it on just for his own selfish gains, and he gets caught. Well, I can't give the movie away, but
That's available right now on Netflix, correct?
yep, it's really good.
Yeah.
Night Clerk's a good movie, man.
Yeah.
I love writer directors. I just always have. I reflect very well for them. I wish they had more power in television so that they would hire me, because I think they'd be really grateful to have this type of actor. Me.
Yeah, man. So that's from Claire. Our next one here is from John Lestrina. He's actually talking about Jonah Hex here. Did TB Player ever have an actual name, or was he always intended to be disrespected? Also, your Jonah Hex would mop the floor with Josh Brolin's.
I'm a lot bigger than Josh Brolin.
Yeah, Josh's a little guy. He's a little guy.
He's a little guy, yeah, and he's strong. Yeah. I know he trains at Gold's Gym in down in Venice, but that he never had a name. I think that was the funnest part. Tom finds humor really well, and TB Player is funny.
Yeah.
TB Player is funny.
Do you have a current favorite actor who's working right now? Somebody you watch right now whose stuff comes out and you're like, I just can't miss that?
Charlize.
She's pretty damn good.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. I love to be able to work with her. Like, we were in that thing to do together, but we never worked together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Charlize's work. She's relentless. She doesn't accept that she's just beautiful, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, she's like one of the all timers. I feel like, and I feel like when it's all said and done and people look back, she'll be one of the icons of this era in a way that I honestly think probably 5 years ago, before like Mad Max Fury Road, I think it was a little different. I think that this second life of her career, the action part, the real action part, has totally flipped the script. I think she's back to being like the top of the top of the top A class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because she's driving the industry. So she drives money. She drives box office. She's driving that now, and she's found out how to do that. So when you make Monster and you win an Academy Award, and you become something unidentifiable, that makes you an artist, right? And then the success, because of being given the award or winning the award, puts her in a whole different category. But then when she's able to, drive box office, it puts the industry in place, and the industry needs people to drive ticket sales.
Yeah, and I think also the industry needs people to drive ticket sales, and they also need people to drive narrative, right? And I think the idea, I love that Charlize is part of this narrative, the sort of changing of Hollywood, which is like cast actresses in their 40s. Don't stop casting actresses when they turn 40. That's been like an epidemic, I feel like, in the industry for a long time, and she's defying that, which is I think pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. I just don't see it any other way. I want those girls to work forever. They're awesome. Charlize is, when she showed up on that Thing You Do set, I was just like, I can't. She's just so beautiful. Yeah. I don't know what to do with myself. And then
I was working at it.
When she would work, everyone would go to the set and watch her.
Yeah.
She was that good.
I worked at this ad studio called Mophonics a long time ago, and I was in my early 20s, and I was composing music for commercials, and I was like the intern, basically. I was just getting started, and I remember she came in to do some voiceover for us one day, and they were like, can you go? Charlize was like, I parked here, and they're like, oh, our lot's across the street. And they're like, can you go park Charlize's car across the street? And so I remember I like met her and shook her hand, and then I went and like moved her Lexus across the way and came back. But she was like tall and like very striking. And I met her again on a red carpet a couple years later. But I remember the first time being like, wow, this woman is very tall. This is like,
she's the real deal. She's tall. She's really big.
So you talking about sort of the industry driving, have you noticed, since you came out with a big story, you talked a lot about your personal experience during the Me Too movement, have you noticed your career feeling different since then? I mean, the industry is driving in that direction with people talking about their personal experiences, their trauma now. You were a part of that?
Do you think that, I don't know if that to be true or not. I can tell it's very difficult to speak your truth, but it's free. That what happened to me was my very first screen test in my industry. I flew to Rome, screen tested, and was molested by Franco Zeffirelli. And I didn't know what it was. I couldn't identify what had happened to me. That was the very first experience that I had, and I had no idea that would follow me and haunt me for all my life. And I have no problem talking about any of it. And I'm a champion for survivors to free themselves, to speak out, to come out, to talk about it, to be a whistleblower, to be a silence breaker, and to then accept not only are you going to be vulnerable to the world that however they may perceive it or whatever that means to them, you will be free and you will take ownership of that. And then you'll be able to write the end of your story. So I don't know if if everyone's doing that or not. If it's a lot of people did it for a lot of different reasons, but I know why I did it, because it was the one thing that I couldn't identify, that I knew if I went into that dark cave, I would be free and I'd be a better father. I'd be more honest with my wife and loving and more intimate with my wife. And I could explain me to me, because I just couldn't identify. I was so confused for such a long time. Like a small part of me was just so fractured that I couldn't be me. I tell you, man, I'm lucky to be alive. I'm absolutely lucky to be alive. I work with survivors, and all of them have so many stories of individuals who didn't survive. It's like we're starting to realize that sexual violence is literally like, I just hate to say it was like a death sentence. That sexual violence is really hard to recover from. And we're in the industry, they have sexual misconduct. You hear that, sexual harassment, and that's kind of borders to stop. Number one, to create equality for women, but also to keep people from, acting out these horrible ways that cause people to be scared to move forward in their careers and their lives. And it's been amazing to be part of that world and in the forefront of the world.
I was really proud of you when I saw you talking about it. I read the article when it came out. I know I texted you, and I think what you're saying is absolutely true, that you do wonder. And that's crazy because how old were you when that happened? Were you 22, 23?
22.
It's the first job. And so how long was it before you even spoke to someone about what had happened? Anyone?
I spoke to a couple girlfriends, and my first wife I shared with, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a crime. I thought it was like something. So I'm a sexual abuse survivor. So it happens to a lot of male survivors when they have an erection and ejaculation within a minute.
Yeah.
Of an anxiety rush, a flush, of inability to move, fear. All these things happen to a lot of male survivors. And when that happens, you can imagine there's a pleasure element that you think is there. But I didn't enjoy the experience. He literally entered my room without my consent. He touched me without my consent. He was a powerful figure in my life, and I didn't know how to respond. Cut to, 3 years ago when the girls were speaking out, and I was like, that happened to me. And that defined me for all that time. I couldn't make that right. I couldn't talk to my father, the cop, about it. I questioned it all the way through. I used it in my work. I used it to try to heal myself from it on many different occasions. I tried to talk to Ellen about it at one time. It's just I couldn't define what it was. And in my work with the Snap Network and RAIN and all these really incredible groups, I've really come to realize that it wasn't my fault whatsoever. And it's not the fault of any survivor who has gone through something like that, where there isn't consent and they question your own sexuality for that long period of time. And our sexuality is so closely to our own unique divinity and creativity. That is important for any survivor, anyone who's listening, to know. You call that out for what it is. You don't need to be right. Just call it out. society can handle what if they can, if they can't handle it. If they have their own issues with it, they're going to have their own issues with it. Believe me, they're going to have their own issues with it. But you're freer inside, and you're able to move on with your life, and you're able to write the ending of your story.
Well, I love how open you are to talk about it, John. I've something I've learned in talking to any of you survivors. You don't talk about the incident. You can talk about the experience afterwards of what your life has been like. And I appreciate that, you know, I asked the question I asked and you just elaborated the way you did, which I think is incredible, because I think it's important for people to hear that, and to see somebody as successful and obviously awesome as you be so willing to talk about it. Something when I talked to you last time, I remember, was you had said that in your 30s you used to drink more, and you kind of had stopped around the time you had a kid. It was just sort of something that you decided wasn't for you. I don't know what your experience is with that now, but do you think it had something to do with the trauma? Do you think that the drinking? Definitely.
Yeah. So what I work a program, anonymous program, and the first one I worked was AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was having trouble with drugs and sex, and I was hurt, and I couldn't get to the root of it. When I was a young boy, when I was 16 when I was a young boy, I had dyslexia, right? So I didn't know it, and I was constantly shamed. My shame cycle started to happen when I would go to school and I'd have to read. I literally went to the bathroom one time, which was a common occurrence anytime they called on me, and I peed my pants on purpose so that I could go back to my teacher and say, some kid peed on me. So I wouldn't read in front of class. That's how traumatic that shame experience of reading, feeling stupid, feeling, my self-esteem being very low, and literally, that's one thing that I remembered. So that was the first one. And then when I was 16, my mother left my father, and he attempted to commit suicide, and I prevented him from doing that. That continued my shame cycle until I got to the place where I got where I was at 22 years old, and I went over, screen tested, and had this magical experience turn it to a fucking nightmare, because the sheep was actually a wolf, and I didn't know that, and he molested me. And that continued the shame cycle in my life. And it caused me to not really be able to have ownership of myself. So when I would start to drink, I sometimes would go to a place where I didn't want to be present. And that experience from being molested caused me to attempt my own life, to attempt to take my own life. I didn't want to live. I didn't think I was worthy of living. It was a difficult time. And then Franco, I made the movie with Franco Zeffirelli. He never touched me again. Well, he touched me, but didn't molest me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And because we had such a hard, because I didn't go along with his plan, he dubbed my voice. He literally used another actor, and he dubbed my performance in the movie, trying to get rid of me. And that caused so much trauma that, I didn't want to live anymore. And that's when I made a movie with Rose McGowan, and then I made a movie with Alyssa Milano. And that's how I really became part of, the Me Too movement 3 years ago, because I knew them. So when I heard them speak out, I was like, this is my calling. This is where I had to find my courage and speak out to. So so the drugs and alcohol, sex, all these things, I realized, like, these are really keeping me from who I really was. And it had a lot to do with hanging out with Ellen DeGeneres as well. And, she was incredibly successful before she spoke out, and she came out on the puppy episode. And I witnessed her, take ownership and find love in her life. And I wanted love more than anything. And I've been able to, I'm on the other side of my shame. So I gave up alcohol, gave up drugs. I didn't give up sex. I just decided to focus on my sex. And I have a beautiful baby girl. She's just over 1 month, because of the ability to work a program that told me that that there was something greater than me.
That's amazing, John. I have a question on the alcohol subject, because I've talked about it pretty publicly, that I go in and out of drinking a lot, drinking a little, something I've thought about a lot. And like, I always wonder, because I do hear stories of very successful industry people, and they often come back to, I just decided it was not something I needed in my life, and then they decide to get sober. And you hear it all the time. And I always wonder with that, like, is that something that I should try, right? Someday, maybe I'd give it a shot. Maybe it would change my life. So how long have you been sober? And when, like, 100%, it wasn't like something you tried. You just decided, I'm going to go to AA, and it's been clean ever since.
No, it was a true struggle. I first time I went there, I didn't like what people were saying. I couldn't identify. I was scared. I thought I was judging, but something kept telling me that I had to go back, and I kept going back, and I went to what they always say, like, you have to find the program that really works for you. And I went back. I went to a Narcotics Anonymous for a period of time, and I was able to give up anything that I was using, substances that I was using. I was able to give up alcohol very easily. And that's how I got to the place where I realized all these things had happened in my life, because I got into love addicts, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And when I did that, I realized, like, the shame that I speak of, it's not being guilty of doing something. It's about this. It's who you are. And I told you this earlier, when you in Joseph Campbell's world, The Power of Myth, sacrifice to bliss. That's a chapter. It's sacrifice to your bliss. What's keeping you from what you want? Is it alcohol, or is it you?
Well, that's why I bring it up as a question. Because I think for me, if I knew the answer, and if the answer was alcohol, then I would just say, I'm just not gonna, because last year I did 3 months I did like a cleanse. I did 90 days sober, and it was pretty cool. It was great. I lost a bunch of weight, like, felt really good. I was motivated. Got boring at the end is the thing. I just got bored of it, which is why I think afterwards I was like, I don't know if that is the answer. And so that's why I mentioned earlier, like, I'm thinking about this next sort of phase. I'm trying to figure out exactly what the path to this next phase of my life looks like. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but it's just fun to ask questions.
Yeah. Okay. So what you just told me is that you're still in your will. So it's Ben's will. It's what Ben's will wants. It's not what a greater power than Ben's will wants. So when I wrote down Tom Hanks and Jessica Lange, I didn't write them because I was going to will myself to them. There was a thing that I was putting out into the universe so that it would come back to me. So that's why I say, what you want in life, you have to take action, consistent action, to do these incredible podcasts that you do. And you're good at this. You're really good at this. But it can't just be your will. It has to be a greater will that guides you to wherever it is that you want. And you can build it, and you're the one that has to take action on it. But once you give it over to something greater than yourself, that's why people give up and say sobriety is such an incredible thing, because you give over to something much greater than yourself, and great things come. Things you couldn't expect, rewards that you couldn't even conceive of.
To be honest with you, I'm even just thinking about this conversation publicly. I don't know if I've ever spoken as candidly with anyone in a public forum about this, because it's weird. You know what I mean? And I know you're talking about the sort of shame. So I know you've spoken very clearly about that idea, but I think this idea that what if, I've drank on camera so many times. It's been such a part of my social experience and my industry. What if actually it was the thing that I had to give up this whole time, and all this time on, like, talking about it, drinking on camera, telling stories about it, that actually it's been a problem. What a weird realization that would be, that, like, and now the world has experienced my problem. That I don't even know. I honestly have to think if I'll even want to put this in the interview. I have to, like, really consider it,
Yeah, yes. You brought that up earlier. You said, like, people talking about it's always been this way. People have always spoken about those things that they found freedom in, because you don't talk about them after you find it. Like, I said stuff here that I'm like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, right.
I don't care. You won't care anymore. You'll be on to your next thing, and that's more important. And you're helping the next person with that issue. That's the other thing. There's a 12-step program in this, and the program it's not like a magical program. It's just something. It's steps that you actually go from one day to the next, working those steps, and you get to the place where you're like, yeah, I'm free from that. I'm not talking about that anymore. It's not a problem. It's not nothing to me. It's something that I have to give up every single day so that I can fly into what I can consider bliss. And that's happiness and life and, and wanting certain things and never thinking about the things that, if I did it, if I didn't, if you're living it, man, you're moving through these things in a bigger way. You'll never talk about it again once you you have to give it up every single day, but get to the next place. Make sense?
Do you ever miss that stuff? Do you ever miss drugs and alcohol these days?
I miss, I have children. It's so much easier, man. Honestly, I have a wife that I want to, be with forever.
Yeah.
I could never do that to them. You get lost, and so when you drink, are you escaping? Or are you just having fun? And if you're just having fun, you're just having fun. But if it's keeping you from not working harder, but really finding what it is that you're supposed to be doing in this world, if you're not contributing in some way that that you can, if you're not entering some dark place that you're scared of, then you're not truly living your life.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the power myth thing, man. I like what you're saying. I'm gonna get it. That sounds like a good place to start.
I'll tell you what, you said is Tom Hanks as magical as everyone says he is. He's more magical. He faces his fears. So whatever that fear is, what are you scared of? Find out.
It's a good question.
If it's just about the alcohol, then that's an easy solution, right? Just don't drink. But if it's something,
I just wish I knew if that's what I'm saying. I think if I knew, it'd be easier. I think it's this, I was in a relationship on and off for a long time, for a big chunk of the last 5 years. And it feels in my brain when I look back at it like it was a defining part of my life. I mean, 5 years is a pretty long time. And so much of my career changed, so much of my life changed during that time. And now for the last little while, I'm no longer in that on and off relationship. And I'm trying to figure out it's weird that relationship feels like it defines a part of my life. But I mean, so much of my life and my relationships that all happened during that time. So now it's like trying to figure out standing on my own, not having, a person to rely on, not having an idea of what the future with this person might be, and creating that reality. What does this reality right now look like? Which is why I'm now more openly asking this question about alcohol, because it's just one of the many questions I'm sort of trying to ask myself, which is, I want to create this happiness. I want to create this version of myself that I want to be. I really want to be that person. Well, I think we're almost out of time, so I unfortunately got to wrap it up. But I hope that you guys that watched this today enjoyed this. I hope this was eye opening. It was for me. This might be my favorite episode I've done so far. This really was just a great conversation, which is what the show is called, ironically. And they usually are great conversations. This just felt like a real great conversation to me.
My acting coach, he died right after when I went through that experience was after he was suffering complications from being HIV, and he died of AIDS when I came back on August 8th, 1993. On his deathbed, he said every scene was about love, because he used to say it was just about love and power. He said every scene is about love or power. On his deathbed, he said everything is about love. That's the truth. That's the magical quality of Tom Hanks. It's all about love.
Epic. Thank you, John. I appreciate you making time for me today. Guys, be sure to follow John. He's on Twitter. He's all over television, his movies. He has all kinds of cool shit that he's working on.
And Blue Ridge, it's on Vudu. I love it, man. It's with Graham Greene. You gotta watch it.
I love Graham Greene. Big fan of Graham Greene.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the very next one. John, thank you so much, and a big thanks to everybody for watching and listening. And see you soon.
See you, Ben.
And once again, a big time thank you to every one of you who stuck around to watch the full interview. That stuff at the end there, I was a little nervous to leave in. I'm glad I did, listening back to it. I think being honest is a good thing. And maybe, just maybe, somebody who's listening will be helped from that as well. So feel free to reach out with any questions you guys have about any of this stuff. But more than anything, I just appreciate you guys showing up and watching the show, listening to the interview, and a big thanks to John Schaech for hanging out with us and sticking around for an hour. A big time thank you to all of my Double Diamond patrons here in the Nerd Network. We've got Brianne Chandler, Charlotte Gherkin, Doug Castle, Philip Gustafson, Jeff Alterman, Jake Iacovetta, Jeremiah Morris, Pardis Jessa Dawson, and Thomas Gosselin. You guys kick butt. Thank you so much for making my life better. And of course, for every single Platinum patron and above, look out for your name in the credits scrolling right now as we speak. Be sure to tune in, same time, same place, next week for another episode of the show. And hopefully, just maybe, we'll be back with Song from the Scene this next week with That Thing You Do in honor of my friend John. All right, guys, I will see you all very soon.